It's gonna be a good one.
It's gonna be a good one.
Definitely a different type of process.
Cut down or freeze up.
Being a coach's son.
Jackson, of course, they keep retooling. One stone to face, a hit by pitch. Oh my goodness.
Hey, welcome back to Baseball 101. Today we got another club with us, going through development, going through kind of what they do, what sets them apart, all those wonderful things that we've been talking about with from Jerry Daniels to everyone else that we've had on here. So hopefully, love to get a different perspective. Today we have Aaron Jaworowski, who's started at the Tigers in 2011.
Yes.
11. See, I read things. And David Birkby, who's been with them since the beginning.
Day one, yep.
See, I read the notes.
There you go.
That's good. I know things. I don't know much, but we know that. So, if I'm correct, you were doing like balls and strikes from like 2000-ish?
Yeah.
All the way up until you decided to start the Tigers.
Yep. Started balls and strikes back in 1999 with summer camps and opened a facility right around 2000, 2001. That's our Baldwin location.
The Baldwin
so,
one.
Yep. We've
balls and strikes camps used to be Baldwin, Manchester over there, Ellisville.
Yeah, the Pear Park. Did our first couple at Lafayette High School. So
that's right.
We still do camps now. We've been doing ball and strikes have been around for 25 years, I guess.
Wow.
So at the same location. So it's been a while. I've been there since day one.
I've been to the Baldwin location a couple times.
Yeah. And
it's been a while, but I'm sure you've remodeled since I was last there.
A few times.
We did. We actually just redid our back building. It's pretty neat. We had Alco came in and redid all the nets, and we did different layouts. So it's about a year ago that.
Has it expanded? Is it still the same blueprint, or have you guys expanded though?
We doubled the size. There's a building adjacent to it, so we knocked out a door and some stairs, and you go down to another warehouse behind it with the same entrance and stuff. So there's about 16,000 square feet there total.
Yeah, so that's much larger than when I was there
years
ago.
Yeah,
I haven't had to hit lately, so not much needs. Go get a cage, but so you're doing that. That's going well, and you just decide, hey, I want to start on the club side of things, or
we started the Tigers. I guess it was winter 2010.
Yep.
So our first summer competing was 2011, and there was a handful of clubs out there. Nothing like today in town.
There's probably only Gamers, Pirates, Prospects.
Less than 10.
Yeah,
I was gonna say 5 to 8 maybe.
Redbirds were around.
Yeah.
It was definitely less than 10. Probably closer to 5 or 6 maybe.
Yeah.
We had a really good, loyal customer base with us and people that used our facility, and we felt like we were networked with a lot of the right coaches to make a go at it. I like building things and starting things from scratch and kind of organizing the whole thing. Like that always intrigues me. So we took off and we went after it. And Dave's been with me since day one, so he's been a huge anchor in everything we've done. And
so you're a patient man.
Try to be at times.
Someone has to calm the chaos. So not that you're that guy, but maybe
sometimes I am the chaos.
I know. I've been assistant coach 25 years, so that was always my job of like, look, calm down. It's okay. If we lose, your name's going in the paper, so I can stay calm. It's fine. If you mess this up, not that Coach Perkins ever messed anything up, so he was always on. But anyway, so when you started at the Tigers, there weren't many clubs around.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything you were trying to do a little bit different than what you've seen? At the time, there wasn't that much to go. Like now, there's so many clubs that I think we'll talk about that later. But at the time, not that there was a huge need for another one, but what was the void you were trying to go, hey, I want to do this a little bit differently? Or
yeah, I think for us, it's just starting off and building it from scratch and kind of carving out our own path and our own way of doing it. We're very like detail oriented in everything we do.
Yes,
which we can get into more of that here in a little bit. But it seemed like there was a void in the area and market for that, for providing the structure that we have and parent communication and schedules and kind of stay on top of the day to day of it. And we thought we were having a lot of success with that with the facility side of it, and so that was a lot of it that went into it.
And it's a natural idea. I mean, you have a relationship with the players. You want to see them do well.
Yeah.
I think that was when I first got out playing playing, I started doing lessons. And it was always rough because I'm like, what I'm teaching, I know the high school coaches, club, whoever, well, there wasn't even club at the time, but high school coaches are teaching differently or using different terminology. So I felt that disconnect. So hopefully, so I can see where I'm like, hey, if I could go coach them and train them, it'd be a lot easier. But you're talking about the details, and it's funny, I've talked about on the show before that I have read all the mission statements and the websites and all the other stuff, and I honestly, I got to yours, I'm like, wow, I got to take 5 minutes to read this because it's detailed. Like it wasn't hey, I got 5 minutes, let's write down, we want to develop players and play in college, which is 90% of what people wrote. But what you guys put out there, and then your website by far is the most detailed, and obviously there's been a lot of time spent in that. The detail behind it, like why you invest so much in those sort of details or that in that social side of things?
I mean, I think it's who we are and what we're about. And again, I think that structure piece is so important to us, and we want to, I think families strive for that. Like they want to know what they're signing up for, what are they paying for, what value is there, and we want to exceed what they're doing, right? And I just think it all starts with the websites. It's the front end of who we are and what we're about, our mission statement, our core values, our staff. It's all on there. So
and trying to be as transparent as possible with it. I mean, parents are trying to make decisions on what club to go to for what reasons. We want to always be completely upfront and honest with literally everything we're going to provide and be kind of loud with it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Obviously, I just got done. My son just finished up the club part, and I mean, many of the years playing against your son's team, and it is interesting when you're going through it, when you're trying to figure out what club to go to or what you're going to do. It's, well, what sets this club aside or apart from this club or this club? Because if you just go out and watch games, they all look similar because you don't see the behind the conversations, the mission statements, the core values, all those things that get taught off the field. So for you guys to have them out there and they're very clear, your website's well organized. It's easy. Like even as a parent, I think one of my biggest frustrations was always like the schedule. Like you're trying to plan the schedule for next year. You're trying to figure out what's going on. You're trying to figure out who the coach is. Like that stuff, that's a lot of stress. You want to make sure your kid's being well taken care of. And you guys, by far, of all of them, I feel like if I was someone from out of town and looked at your website, I'd be like, I would be drawn to go to that team going, hey, I'm going to know what's going on. I'm going to know who's taking care of my kid. I know what they believe. So from that standpoint, by far, you guys have done a great job with that.
Thanks. No, it's helped. It's been a big part of it, and we do website audits every quarter. And
2 weeks ago,
we just doing a couple weeks. Like an example, all their rosters are up there now, and there's a couple when they type in their name, one kid's in caps, the other one's in lowercase, and we're like, okay, we need a new function here to get them all correct because it's that detailed. What I think it takes to run it, and if we're not doing it, how do we expect our coaches and kids and athletes to do it? So it's definitely very important to us.
And that's why there's so many details within baseball that you can develop a lot of different parts of it. And if you're asking kids and parents and players and coach everyone to be detail oriented, and you're not,
right?
And I think that's the thing that I know as a player, and I'm sure you guys as players, you knew when coaches were being authentic and when there's a lot of hypocrisy of, hey, I want you to act this way, but then they're acting a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that from coaches from day one of when I was playing. I mean, if they were incredibly detailed in their pregame and everything, you kind of knew the expectations and you were on your toes. Like you had to be dialed in to time, to everything, to what you're doing. Vice versa, I played for a bunch of guys who were kind of just showing up and going through the motions, and it led to that too.
And I think for me, I wanted to know the expectations. And if the expectations were clear, I knew what I had to live up to. But if it changed day to day, and the first 3 or 4 years I coached at one school, and that guy would have we'll call it a practice plan. It was more of a mental plan. The next year I was at another school where the guy had written it in pencil, a little more organized. And then I started working with Tony that everything was typed out and it was by the minute. And it was, I mean, the difference is for me, I function much better when I know what's coming. Hey, we're doing this drill for 10 minutes and then we're moving on. It's not, we need to do first and thirds. We'll do them until we get it right. An hour and a half later, it's just, it ain't working.
Right.
So do you guys, since we're on practice plans and coachings and details, like with the younger coaches, obviously you need dad coaches. I mean, you need coaches. I mean, with the amount of teams out there, and there's a lack of quality coaches. So how do you prepare the younger coaches at those 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up really till high school. Do you guys have paid coaches, I'm guessing?
Paid coaches at high school. We have mainly dad coaches at the youth. Every one of our teams is a little bit different, from skill level to wants to needs to amount of games played. We kind of let them control their schedules with guidance, as you will. But we're constantly meeting. We just had our youth managers meeting last Thursday night. We're constantly meeting with those guys to help them formulate off-season training programs that fit their team's needs and wants and what they want to gain, accomplish, and kind of giving them that navigation, that vision, if you will, and the resources. And we're super lucky to have the staff that we have that works and integrates with them throughout the off-season and throughout the season at times. And,
I also think we talked in the office yesterday about, I think the dad coaches can get a bad rap out there. We need them. Like we meaning not us, but I think the people in St. Louis in the industry, we all need dad coaches. Like those guys are out there volunteering. They got big hearts. They're putting in their time. They're huge baseball fans. You got some that are super organized with the admin side and navigating the group through, but maybe not as good on the baseball side, and that's where we can help them. Yeah. Then you got some good baseball guys that maybe don't keep things as organized, and we feel like we can help them as well with the structure that we have. And if you get them both, then you got a really good coach.
Well, dad coaches are essential, and I've talked before about dads know how to talk to an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, because they have one, or at least hopefully they're talking to him in the appropriate way, but they're used to that sort of dynamic where if you brought a college guy in that maybe has playing background but doesn't know how to talk to an 8 or 9-year-old, that's an issue. So that's why I think dad coaches are essential. You need them, but at the same time to give them the structures and resources they need so they can lead in the way they need to, so the kids are having fun and all that. So do you put we talk about games played, and we've talked before, I had a guy on here that his son played 85 games in 5th grade, and I'm like, that's a lot. And my first question was whose responsibility is it to limit? Because a dad that's just man, I love baseball. I love to play. The kids want to play. The parents are like, let's play. I get it. But like I said before, you give a kid candy every night for dinner, eventually it's man, that's a bad idea. Even though they love it, they want it. It's you have to set some boundaries. Do you guys try to set boundaries based on age of hey, you guys can get your schedule, but try to keep it within this framework of we don't want 80 games in 4th grade?
We do let the coaches handle their schedule. Not a lot of our teams go down that path, I would say, to that diehard at that age.
Yeah.
I do think there's that burnout factor you got to be careful with.
Or even the health factor. I mean, we try to educate a ton on, the pitching limitations of an arm and putting kids out there where you're throwing them 90-plus pitches every single weekend for 15 straight weekends. Well, you're gonna have an injury there. And so they're talking about the MLB pitch guidelines and things like that just help them get the framework of, okay, your kids are approaching 35, 40 innings. That's probably what you want to set your schedule around and keeping them in
So do you guys check in with them throughout the season, or is it?
Yeah.
And that's what everyone does it differently. That's why I was curious. As the season's going on, you continually are having conversations with.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, send information out. We got it's called our VIP section on the back end of our site they have access to, and there's probably over 500 archive pieces of information that we've created, and it's practice plans and pitch counts and dugout charts and training videos, and it's all done in house. It just keeps getting archived in there. So I think they rely on that a lot too, and
and that's awesome. I know I haven't seen a lot of clubs spend that much time to give them the practice plans are huge. Just to have them a template and those are things that should be part of the club. Not to be dumb, they're paying to play baseball, and as a dad coach, I mean, what they're volunteering to support them in that way. I'm glad you guys are doing that because I have not seen a lot of that. And obviously going through, I know your son's just finishing up, so you go through and you see a lot of the other teams, their pregame stuff and their practice, and you're like, there's a lot of room for growth, to put it nicely.
Oh yeah.
So so if you're a dad coach, you're like, man, I'm not getting support with my current club. There's a club that might have opportunities for growth there. So this is not paid advertisement, but it is something that after being around as long as I have, it is rare that it seems like clubs are not developing coaches and supporting, especially the younger ones, the way they should. So for you guys to do that, that's That's awesome. I lost my train of thought because I started reading things in the middle of talking about things. But going back to your mission statement, I mean, at the beginning of it, you talk about educate, train, grow the game. And all of it's, I mean, performance. You're trying to develop players. One, you're trying not to burn them out. Mm-hmm. You want to have fun with it. And then you're trying to develop them so they can play as long as possible, whatever that may be, whether it's middle school, high school, college, professionally. So you talk about at the beginning when parents come to you and are like, hey, here's X amount of dollars to play. At the end of do you do a pre-assessment as far as the metrics, development, and then at the end? So, because we talked with Brett Graves from Premier, and he was talking about they do the assessment, they plan the program around the assessment, then they have the post-assessment. So as a parent, I just pay this money. I'm like, I'm able to see growth. And a lot of clubs, the only growth is, hey, look at all these players we have on our website going to college, which is more genetic than development. So how do you guys approach that sort of measuring development?
We do several evaluation periods throughout the year, especially with our high school guys. We have them way more hands-on than our youth. So at the early on winter time period, when they first get back in the facility, start training, we do initial evaluations on our guys, get some of the baseline metrics, have our staff kind of give them some general feedback on here's how to approach your next 3 to 4 months of off-season training. Here's some things we'd like you to make adjustments to, and kind of print some templates out. So we're actually communicating with the parents in that as well as just the players. So that, obviously they see the things that their son needs to work on, but also they can be the ones also pushing that from their end. And then throughout the year, we're constantly asking our coaches for evaluations on their players. I mean, we gather a ton of stats, not that we put a whole lot of emphasis in that side of it, but we take every piece of information into consideration in terms of where they're moving in the future, what colleges they need to be talking to, constantly getting that feedback and staying in communication with the athletes and with the families. They need to see the path. They need to see where they're going, what we're teaching, why it's working or why it's not working, and how we're going to attribute that to the future.
I wholeheartedly agree.
We also have player profiles on every player that they're hands-on and they manage them. So as their metrics update through the years or year, they can go on there and it links into their PBR and PG profiles and links into Blast Motion, and they can send out to college coaches and recruiters. So that's a big tool they use too to measure it.
So when you start talking about the path and the metrics, based on when do you start talking to them about where you see them fit, going to college? I know, because one of the things I think I've seen way too much is every parent thinks their kid is D1 and they hold on to D1 and hold on to D1 and don't even consider, hey, my son might be a D2, might be NII, might be JUCO, which there's nothing wrong with it, but it's it's D1 or bust when guys that have been around baseball can look, and it doesn't take long to go, you're not D1. And there's nothing wrong with that, but do you start having those conversations freshmen, sophomores,
if you were to ask me that about 2 or 3 years ago, the answer would be different than today.
Yeah.
So 2 or 3 years ago, when kids were getting recruited a whole lot earlier, I think you had to, even if they weren't necessarily ready, to at least start introducing them to some of that information at a freshman age level. And even if they weren't a guy who's going to get looked at until his junior year, you still want them to have some sort of education going behind it so that when that time does come for them, they're ready to go. Nowadays, I think it's just getting pushed back with the way the transfer portal is, the NCAA regulations that now say you can't communicate till September 1 of your junior year. It's just getting pushed a lot further back, but I still think there's a really important element to giving a ton of the education beforehand. Evan Pratt works with us. He's been with us for 4 years. He handles that side of it for us, and he was in the D1 game for 26 years prior, and he takes a ton of pride in sending out almost monthly information on whether it's updated recruiting guidelines, what's a quiet period, what's a dead period, how to communicate with coaches, where to look, what are the different levels out there, and trying to literally give them the whole landscape so that when that conversation happens for them, at whatever point, whether that's September of their senior year, whatever, they're ready for that conversation to happen.
Yeah.
I think too, with the parent side too, when you play in certain events, they see it. I think that's when they're first exposed to it, oh, he's going to Vanderbilt. That's why my son's not going there, because they can see he's on different level a lot of times.
They should be able to see, but I have, and I'm sure you have had parents that you're looking, going, you see the difference, right? No, get your eyes checked because this ain't working for you. That's 92. Your son's 81.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, it doesn't help them to have. I mean, if you're, we've had numerous circumstances where a kid or a family just continuously thinks that they're at that Power 5 level. You can send a million emails to them, but if you're not the guy, you're not the guy. And nowadays, becoming that guy's way harder, especially out of high school. You better be open to every single level out there and any opportunity, because that's getting a little bit tougher.
And I think with we can talk about the NCAA changes that are coming, 40 to 34. I mean, we've talked. I mean, that's 1,800 D1 kids that are displaced.
Yep.
And really, the only elite D1 kids that are going to go, I mean, they're kind of that bubble draft kid already, which puts them in a whole nother category. Like, it's going to become very, very difficult for a high school player to go D1. Like, 100%. It just, and I think the mid-majors, even people are like, oh, well, mid-majors aren't, if you can go play at SEMO, you're really, really good. Really Missouri good. State is one of the, like, that's what the mindset of it has to be. Well, I guess Power 4 now, or Power 4.2, whatever. I don't know what's going on out there, but like, I think that's where the education piece that you're talking about, and I'm glad that you guys are taking that time to educate of like the differences between levels, the opportunities, because if you look at where most kids sign, they sign somewhere in 4 to 5 hours, and most of them don't sign D1. But there's some parents that seems like it's like just banging your head against the wall, like, hey, it's okay to do this, and my son has to be the best.
Yeah, it's also, I always think too, when you get to school, once they get there, they're not worried about, oh man, I wish I was at LSU.
Yeah,
they're like, I'm at Jeffco, or I'm at Maryville, or I'm at SEMO.
Yeah,
it becomes their fraternity, and they have a blast, and it's college baseball. It's like, I think there's such a misconception that way too. Like, well, once they get there on the backside, they love it. I mean, college baseball is awesome, wherever you're at.
I had more fun playing in JUCO than I did D1. I went to Merrimack for 2 years. I loved it. I mean, I love those guys.
Yeah.
They're a little crazy. They were a lot crazy. But that's okay. But that's why Carrick Jackson was on that team with me at Merrimack. Like, I met a lot of those guys that.
Was Whaley coaching then?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was an experience.
Yeah, you called me.
Love you, Coach. No, I mean, we had we went to the College World Series twice. But I think my sophomore year, the average starting age was 21. So we had a lot of D1 guys that had made some decisions that got back. But Pierre was on that team, making it was a nice team. But needless to say, out of high school, if you've been like, hey, if you go to JUCO, you'll enjoy it. I didn't know, because you haven't experienced it. So for those guys that are like, I don't want to go JUCO. Well, do you really understand what that means? And especially going into this new system, you better be open. If you really want to play,
better be open.
And there's a path for everyone. The path for most is not high school D1 draft. I mean, it just doesn't happen. And it's okay to take different paths and do different things. Like, but some people get locked into their little perception. So with the change of the NCAA stuff and kids not being able to be seen till August 1st, September 1st, junior?
September 1st of junior, I believe, is when they can first be communicated with. Or August 1st, one of those 2 days.
We'll go with the fall.
August 1st.
Fall of junior year is when you – so has that changed? Because it used to be you would travel at 14 and 15 a lot, because, like, some kids were committing and colleges were out watching it. So 8th, 9th, 10th grade, you were being recruited. Since that's being cut out, is that changing kind of how you look at traveling and which events you go to, or?
I think it has to. I think we're having a lot of those internal conversations now about how to approach travel. Should you back down travel? Because we are lucky to be in St. Louis with a bunch of talented kids around that when you play on any given weekend here, you're going to play some good talent, see some good dudes. So it's not like you have to leave all the time to expose your players to high levels of talent. But I think that you're really having to pick and choose where you're going a little bit more carefully than in past. Because especially now, I mean, recruiters have to it was so odd last summer, because that was the first real year of the impact the portals had and that opening up at really the beginning of summer. Some of the coaches that we would see week 1, week 2, even for our juniors, that were out there just trying to get a head start on the summer schedule, they were sitting in their office on the portal.
Yeah.
And they weren't coming out until, 34 weeks into the summer schedule, when they kind of sifted through the portal enough to know how many high school guys they really need for that class. And so I think you got to be a lot more careful with what travel you go to, where you go, and really make sure that that's going to have – I think it has to be super impactful other than just going to a cool experience venue with good level competition. I think that has value to it, but I think you have to be even more diligent in what you're doing.
Yeah, that's the – I read an SEC recruiter was talking, or so it was on PBR, that was – they have to recruit their team first, because now it's a 1 year. You can leave whenever. So now you're trying to retain your kids. So you're really negotiating NIL deals with your own kids first. Then you're going to the portal. And then that's really, you think about May and June. It's probably late June, July before they really get down to understand what they need from high school kids, which limits, not to be dumb, there's really not a whole lot of coaches or recruiters going to be out early June. So it's like, is traveling in that time frame even make sense if you're going out to be seen, but you're not even being seen until, what was it, 16, 17? Well, junior year, was it 17 now?
Yeah.
So traveling at 14, 15, if, there's nothing, and I'm not anti-travel. Like, I think there is something about going away and understanding playing in uncomfortable settings. Like, if you play in the same field all the time, to go to Creekside, go to Indy, nothing wrong with it. But I think finding that balance, especially now with the rule changes, and the cost has gone up so much with travel, it's just, I think it's going to have to shift in some ways just for people to be able to afford to even do this anymore. So
that's what I think too, with like the cost, with the price of tournaments and travel and hotels. I think I could see teams backing down on schedules. They might knock out a tournament and do 8 of them instead of 9 of them, or 9 instead of 10, or whatever how they set their schedules and do. I could see that changing too because of the cost factor for parents. Because, like you said, something's got to give. It can't just keep going up and up and up and expect people to pay for all this.
And at the end of the day, development's the goal. You want to maximize the kid's talents. If you can maximize the kid's talent by playing locally or playing, I know Brett Graves was talking about, they do the PCDL. I don't know the letters or so many acronyms. But basically, developmental league for the college players, which they're playing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then training Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever. I'm like, even a miniature version of that, if you could get a handful of clubs to go, hey, we're going to do this, because really high school at 14U ends middle of May to middle of June. You could have 4 weeks to really develop your team and get guys, because some high schools aren't coached exceptionally well. So there's a gap of getting guys back and understanding relays and cuts and approach and all kinds of things. But I am curious what it's going to look like in 3 to 5 years, because there's going to be a shift just with the NCAA rules. If the goal is to develop, there might be other ways to do it that when you started in 2011 looked a little different.
Yeah, looks different now.
Well,
for sure.
The elite tournaments were actually elite at one point.
Yeah.
Now it's, I got an email or I can sign up and spend.
They were smaller too. Which I think we're getting back to that a little bit. The bigger ones, I feel like, are a little smaller than they used to be even 3-4 years ago.
Even the WWBA last year was 450 teams or 400 whatever teams, and you play once a day. And it's not like you're playing at one venue. It's, hey, let's drive to Atlanta and then maybe drive an hour and a half that way or that way. It's like, so it's going to be interesting what clubs you guys decide to start doing with. Which ones do we feel like need to be seen? Because going to Creekside and being seen by colleges in the Midwest, if you're going to invest the money to do that compared to going to Lake, interesting things you guys get to decide. I'm done, so I won't be going to Lake Point anyway. That's not.
Now you're going to spring training.
That's the goal. Get me an RV. I'll be in Arizona for a week or two. I just talked to my wife about that today. I was like, we're going to have to go. Anyway, that's a whole nother traveling situation. The development piece, obviously playing games is important. Reps is important. But at the same time, there's other aspects of development that I think each club kind of emphasizes different things. I saw on your website, which I hadn't seen on other ones, the virtual reality hitting approach. How do you start that, or how's that going?
We just entered into a partnership with Win Reality. So that's the virtual reality technology that allows you to focus on pitch recognition, timing, stuff that you can do in the house. We've worked with a lot of different tech providers over the years because we're always honestly getting reached out to about, joining up on platforms with them. And I think, with the level of athletes that we work with, tech is great, and tech's not going anywhere in the game. It's only getting trickled down from the highest levels down to the youth levels more and more and more, and it's becoming more affordable. But the question we always try to ask is it applicable to the athletes that we work with at the younger levels? Some of it, it's great to know your rotational acceleration, but what does that kid know anything about that? So is it applicable? Well, we kind of figured with virtual reality, number one, I think kids are already involved with those meta headsets. They're already doing that for other things like that, so they're very familiar with that technology. And it was a way for us when we were meeting with Wynn, and when talking to those guys, I thought it was something that could give players another outlet to work at their game, even outside of their cages, just for 10 to 15 minutes. His son had used it before and used it in the hotel rooms in between games on summer and would see a lot of value out of it. And when we started to deep dive on the ability to see these pitches that are, age specific and getting some timing work and feel work and it's training the eyes, it was something that we thought was of benefit to the families that wanted it.
So is this the first year you've done that?
Yep. We literally have a webinar tonight with them. So we just launched.
So at what age are you offering that? You guys go down to 5, 6 years. I don't even know how.
Yeah.
It's to all ages. And what they've kind of done with us is they've built out they're pretty detailed on their end in terms of having age-specific training models. So you're going to see velocities that are very similar to your age as a hitter. You're going to see the pitches that you would normally see if you wanted to go up. They have skill level breakdowns. So it kind of allows you as the player to navigate that and see where you fit. And then based on, I guess, how you perform, you get to kind of move up levels with it and train a little harder. But they're doing some cool online stuff with our program to where they're going to have, leaderboards and leagues and stuff like that forms competition internally with kids in our program and stuff that they can go have a little fun with.
So are the coaches getting in on the leaderboards? Are you swinging it? Have you tried this? I'm curious. I've
tried it. I've tried it.
I've had it on. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's a different world.
Yeah.
It's like you're literally immersed in your stadium format, facing. It looks very realistic.
That'd be interesting. I don't know if I could still hit, but I don't know what level. Maybe it's 8U. I could still rank at 8U. Maybe.
I don't want to be told how bad I am.
Especially if it's going on leaderboards, be like, hey, who's at the bottom? Ooh, sizzle. That's not good. But it's okay. It's fine. My day has passed. But obviously that's something that's different. You guys do that, which is interesting. I'm curious because I don't know anyone else using it around here. And I think that's the thing with me with clubs that are pushing forward, trying to find advantages and trying to find new ways of doing things and not being stuck in that old school mentality where I know when we were growing up, it was basically just more reps. Mm-hmm. And I think it's getting to the point where with burnout, and I see it with high school kids all the time. I mean, I talked to a softball player this morning. They finished their season, made it to the final 8. They lost this week, and she's going back and playing again. I'm like, what? You ever thought maybe a break?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we naturally had breaks, or I know I did, because my break was football or basketball, and we'd play different seasons. Now it's like baseball has become a year-round thing. Do you encourage your kids to step away at some point and work on other things, or the weight room, or what's your year-round system look like?
No, for sure we do, and we do like multi-sport athletes. I think that's really important to play as many sports as you can for as long as you can, and not just pigeonhole one sport. That time will come when it's time.
It's time,
and you're ready or they're ready. But that obviously gives them a break, and I think arm rest and arm care is important for a shutdown period. You get the hitters that don't want to stop a lot of times and just stay in that cage and keep hitting, and those cage rat type players, and it's hard to slow them down.
It's hard, and that's what trying to explain to them, hey, a month away sometimes or whatever, your time in the weight room is going to change you more than getting more reps in the cage.
100%.
And I think that's something that it was tough for me to understand, because I'm like, if I'm in a slump, I want to hit more and hit more and hit more. But at the same time, looking back, I'm like, the times I really grew was when I got gains in strength and when I stepped away from baseball because I came back with kind of a fresh mindset. Mm-hmm. And there was a reset naturally where I was like, okay, I'd forgotten my bad habits. I forgot, when I stopped hitting, I couldn't hit. All of a sudden, I picked the bat up and I was back to, I can hit. I'd forgotten how bad I was. So that was good. But you guys still do fall ball?
We do.
Yeah, it's an optional program for Tigers only that want to play fall ball. So not all of our kids do it. I would say we had 5 rosters, about 50, 60 kids this fall that played. We just do 4 weekends of tournaments. They get around 15 games or so. But then we do training with Maryville coaches, and we're out there for 4 weeks on Tuesday nights with the Maryville staff, and they're running practices with them. So
that's a great experience.
It was awesome. Yeah,
that's awesome. So you don't do the weight training within the Tigers. You work with.
We have Fitzmaurice Performance. Brian Fitzmaurice runs that. He has space in our Chesterfield location as a satellite gym for his other facility in Ellisville. And then a lot of our kids go to EBA as well with Denton McNamee. So we do push it as much as we possibly can, and they can handle, because that's, like you said, that is so important to get stronger.
It's not the fun part, though.
No.
And that's the part where, kids are like, I want to hit, I want to throw, I want to field. Well, yes, I get all that, and that's where the educational piece of all those things are great, and reps are great, but the strength is what's going to make you go from a high school player to a college player to professional, and that's what that weight room, it's doing the things you don't want to do that's going to move you forward. Mm-hmm. And it's tough to get across to a high school kid that's just like, I just want to swing. Mm-hmm. Well, let me
defense is getting lost too. Probably not with your son and his glove, but just in general, it feels like kids don't want to field and they don't want to put the time in anymore, and just ground ball work, fungal work, left and right. They just want to hit.
I joke with this all the time. I go, you can ask any kid what his exit velocity is or what his throwing velocity is off the mound. You ask a kid what his fielding percentage was last year, they couldn't tell you.
No.
I would love it for one day a kid to come up to me and brag about fielding at a 98% clip. That would be make my day.
That would be special.
That would be special.
We've actually changed our off-season training program to cater to way more towards defense, like extreme defense heavy, because they're hitting on their own so much already, and a lot of them have instructors and programs they go to with a lot of them with us, and it just seems like that's been forgotten.
So with defense, just curious, because do they only do infield or only do outfield? I'm only asking, when you get to college, a lot of times the position you play in high school ain't where you're playing in college. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much wherever
the need is.
So do they come to some outfield stuff even though they're an infielder? I'm guessing it's just an option anyway, but.
Yeah, we try to have that secondary position going. Even during the summer, we try to rotate them through a couple positions where we see them fitting in at. I think that's important.
Without the versatility at the next level, like if you were shortstop in the Cardinal organization in the 80s, you weren't playing shortstop. Mm-hmm. So the versatility, Titus got drafted as a shortstop. Well, the first rounder was a high school shortstop. So he's got some time at short, but he played second, he played third while he was out there this year because he's more versatile than the other kid, which I'm glad. And that's, he played with the Royal Scout team. Trey Schneider was a shortstop, so he went and played center field. Versatility, when you get to college, you got to find a way to get on the field, and if you can hit, they'll find a place if you're versatile defensively. Yeah. But I agree that defense is.
Well, and truth be told, you have no idea where you're going to end up. You really don't. You have no idea. I don't have any idea. He doesn't. We can somewhat tell you what your future is going to be like on the short term, but I don't know what situations you're going to be in at the college level. I don't know what you're going to be in at the pro level. Your body might change. You might develop a different, unique tool that now plays more in some other area. So my advice to kids is don't just pigeonhole yourself into one area because you're limiting your options in the future. Absolutely. And you don't want to be that guy who gets into college and says, well, I only play first base, coach. Well, if you got 3 first basemen, you're going to sit on the bench a lot. Good luck finding the field.
And I think that's the tough part for kids to understand. They only see a small – they're only competing with the kids they can see. Mm-hmm. They understand there's a whole other world, and especially you play 16U, you're only seeing 16-year-old. Well, you get to college, now you're playing against those guys that were 17, 18, 19. It's a 4-year gap in there that you're competing against, not just, I'm the best high school in the state. Well, that's great. There's 50 states. and it's just not your age. So versatility to me is a huge thing, but I think that's part of the education piece, which I think you guys do a great job going through. The other thing with your core values, I know we talk about dad coaches. I skipped over it, and I meant to ask you about it. Like, I think it's challenging with dad coaches to get everyone on the same. It's tough to get everyone on the same page of anything. And I've seen enough youth games where there are some coaches, dad coach or not, it doesn't matter, that has kind of lost perspective of we're not in the World Series. We're at a Game 7 Ellisville tournament. It's okay if we lose. I hate losing, but it's whatever. It's not the end of the world. How much time do you spend trying to really instill like those values that you created long ago to make sure that the people representing you are doing it even when you're not around?
Yeah, I mean, we try to have that front and center. Like everything we do is the core values, from our high school program packet to the youth side to the coaches meeting, our national convention we did with all the directors around the country. Like the core values it's who we are. Dave and Spiker brought that up with me, and the three of us kind of set forward to lay those out. And we had a little retreat one day at a property I own, and we all went out there. There's about 10 of us, of our key people, I'll say, our co-signers in this thing, and we developed them right there in about 3 or 4 hours and put pen to paper. They were ideas that we had, and they were in our heads and in the computers and different thoughts, but we really framed it out and said, this is it. We're going to go with this thing, and we believe in it and push it every day. I also think on the youth side, it's helped us attract the coaches we want, because when coaches read it that believe in this stuff, then they want to be part of what we're doing. Yeah. And if we have the right coaches, they're going to bring in the right families. So it's a trickle-down effect from that regard. And they bring a lot to it for us. I mean, they're the guys that are out there and sweeping the dugouts and things like that, and winning the next pitch and that type of mindset that we want. So it's been a great thing.
But. I think you have to live it. You have to be open and out front about it. Ultimately, there's just so many more things that go into the whole youth baseball and high school process and just winning and losing. Yeah. I firmly believe that at the end of the day, you're not going to remember what 10U championships you won. You're not at all. You might in the moment. That might be a really cool Sunday feeling for you, and that's great. And I'm not saying I don't love winning, and I love competition, and that's fantastic.
But that Tuesday feeling typically is not linked to the Sunday feeling.
No, you're not going to remember that, but you're going to remember the coach that really cared about you, that helped you out, that taught you so much more even outside of the game than inside the game. I mean, I think there's just a lot of things that go into the puzzle when helping players and families navigate that process.
And that's the impact that you guys can have by developing the coaches. To me, is a bigger impact than you're going to have trying just to develop the players. Because you can't have relationships with every player within your system. Like, I don't know how many teams you have, but especially if you go out nationally and not all of them can know the greatness of Aaron. Like, it's just limited. So to put that on, so like when a dad says or a coach says, hey, I want to coach for the Tigers, is there kind of I'm thinking of a word.
Screening process?
Well, not screening as much as well, if you want to go screening, we do background checks.
Background check and custom
training. To introduce them to all this material and how you do things. And, oh, my gosh, orientation? Is that sure? Let's go with orientation.
Yeah.
That makes – look, it's been a long day, okay? I've been with high school kids. Yeah. That's okay. I'm shifting. It's a beautiful day outside, though. Today, I don't know if the day you're watching it's beautiful or not, but I'm back to snow cones. I'm sorry. So when you get the coaches that come in, how do you get that information instilled in them?
No, I mean, we present it to them. We first and foremost talk about, who we are as a club, where we've come from, talk about the history, the people that we have inside the house, that we work with on a day-to-day, what we believe in. Because I think it's super important that when you join a club, you fit some of those. It doesn't have to be everything. Like, you don't have to agree with 100% of everything we do, but you want to be around like-minded individuals. You don't want to be in a situation where you totally believe in something else. And I'm not saying we're a right fit for everybody. So trying to present who we are as a club, what we believe in, and having that conversation and being open and honest of are these things that you believe in, or these things, what are you trying to do? What's your team like? Asking those types of questions and and really seeing, if it's a fit that we can move forward with.
It's like speed dating.
To a certain extent.
I don't know where I want speed dating on that, but that's okay. My brain is still stuck in orient. Speaking of changing the way we think, because obviously my brain's checked out for the day, one of the things you have in here, which I love it, and I'm glad you put in here. I've been trying to teach it to my son, and he didn't listen until he got out to professional ball and didn't put a ball in play for about 3 weeks. He's like, I have to change how I define success. I'm like, well, that's a good idea. You might want to do that. So this growth mindset or learning mindset, the way you, how do you get kids to understand that if you're just looking at results, that's really not the best way to look at growth. It's not all about, I hit 400 this year, next year I hit 350. Maybe you hit a better 350 than you did 400. I'm guessing it goes back to teaching the coaches and making sure they're all on the same page. But is there something specific you do to really implement that kind of learning mindset?
I think it starts with the coaches and just implement it through them and teachable moments and learn by losing, learn when failing. I think that's huge where kids are going to get down in the dumps, like you said, and they're not going to understand it right then. But we need the like-minded coaches to keep instilling that development all the time and that teaching framework.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think you also have to teach them how. One thing that especially the younger generation is kind of lacking these days is they don't really fall in love with the process anymore.
Exactly, I agree.
And that's where your time's spent, and that's where your gains are going to be spent, and learning and failing and adjusting and doing it over and over and over again. That's what this game's built on. If you just live in the day-to-day results, you're going to just go down a deep, dark rabbit hole that's going to be almost unable to climb out of. So teaching them about the process and sticking to your routines and learning even what routines are. Some kids don't even have those types of things set up in their structure. So falling in love with the process, falling in love with the cage, falling in love with the little things, and letting the big picture details take care of themselves.
And that, I think, as you get older, you learn more and more that I always control the controllables. You can't control the results, but I can control getting in the cage. I can control my routine. I can control what I'm eating. I can control the weight room. I can control all those things. If I can just control what I can control, I can be okay with how things turn out. Mm-hmm. It's when I get upset with the umpire, I get upset with the coach, I get upset with things I can't, the lady in the third row that's yelling at me, I can't control her. Those are things those teaching moments within games, and some of the parents get a little crazy, but that's okay.
Yep. Always crazy.
The screening process on the parents. All parents are wonderful. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation that I'm not even going to go down that path. But I'm trying to see what else I've skipped over. We bounced all over the place. We talked about that. We talked about that one too. So we mentioned a little bit earlier, and we talked about kind of some of the things that are shifting, and with NCAA. If you were looking 3 to 5 years from now, is there something that you can see you guys doing differently, or something you want to implement, or something that's from travel to, we talk about mental performance a little bit. I think that was one thing I told my son they're doing with the Diamondback. They're mindfulness training daily, which I don't even know what mindfulness is until recently. But is there anything that you can see yourself really going, hey, I want a defense? I know you talked about a little bit. Anything else that you're like, that seems to be the direction we're going?
Trying to think on it. I think that there's going to be natural changes to it because you're always looking for something new to add in. I'm very interested to see how the tech side of the game continues to be introduced into the youth space. I've heard inner workings from even tournament companies and things of that, integrating more in-game tech and numbers and things that they can develop data points on players, and how is that digested, and how is that used, and how's that used in the recruiting cycles. From the actual game side, I think that's a lot of it's more on the tournament side to change that, or even the clubs to say we want a different structure. I don't know where that's going to go in 3 to 5, but I could see it changing.
Yeah.
Just because people are creatures of habit, and when they're tired of that habit, they want something new. So if they've done it a million times, they're always going to look for the new shiny object. So I think that that's there's a good structure out there right now. I think that at this point, young athletes and families can get an incredible experience that 10 years ago you couldn't get.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just think that everybody's going to keep trying to raise that bar, raise that standard to attract new eyeballs, and I think that'll naturally kind of gravitate towards new experiences for the families, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I think fall ball needs to evolve.
A lot.
So we've thought that a lot the last few years, and it I don't know. I just think there's got to be a better way than what it is now. And
I can't. I personally think fall should be dedicated more to the strength and weight side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on. There's a lot of variables within that, but for like a high school player that they've been training year round, by the time they get to the end of July, at some point, when can you really focus on strength?
Mm-hmm.
Because while you're still throwing, while you're still hitting, it does limit what you can do in the weight room just because your body, you can't do that. And fall ball is one of those, I'm not a huge advocate for fall ball. Mostly, and part of it I'm sure is because I never played fall ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was playing football, so I'd put it down, and I saw the benefit in doing that. But a lot of the kids I talk to at school are like, well, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe talk to a girl. Girlfriends are good.
The one thing I would say about it is the way it shouldn't be looked at is just an opportunity to get more games. And I think that's all it is looked at a lot of times by kids. Like, I don't play football. I don't play any fall sports, so I'll just go play more games. Whereas, man, I'd love to see a process become, evolve into where it's truly like a development-based time period, because you got great weather.
Yeah.
You can get outside, work on your skills. It doesn't have to integrate a million games and rack up more innings on the arm or whatnot. But it's a period where if you want to go get better, I think that, some sort of development type of spring training type program or something like that.
Instructional leagues.
Something along those lines. I think there could be some value to that, to where kids really can assess their game at that point. They're coming off their spring, summer seasons. They can start to figure out through coaches where they need to focus their time on and go work at it while they still can get outside and do it.
I agree. Hopefully, yes, find something with fall ball developmental. I'm all in on that.
Yep.
Especially kids that are trying, maybe they start to develop, and now, you know what, I want to try to learn how to catch. Like, you can take risk in a developmental league that you couldn't when there's coaches watching you.
Correct.
And I think that stress-free environment of like, hey, let's do something different. But if you're just going to go out and get more swings, more reps, I don't think that's the answer. And I think that's detrimental in a lot of ways. But anyway, so they're going to fix fall ball for us and everything else.
We'll
but
do it.
We got it. We got a plan. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Hopefully
awesome.
You guys watching understand, like, look, there are some really good clubs out there. There's people doing some really good things, and hopefully the show lets you know, like, the Rawlings Tigers are doing things that other clubs really aren't doing. Especially, it seems, I know from the sport of developing coaches and the things they're doing. I know most of the guys that are on staff with them. They're a great group. I would highly recommend, if you're like, man, I don't know what club to go to, I would check it out. I'm sure if they reach out, you can talk to any of several people that will all give you the information needed. But appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next week.